breaking down all the plays and getting you in the action. We've got you covered all season long. Welcome to the BCSN Nation podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for stopping by episode number 6 of the BCSN Nation podcast. I am your host, as always, Brendan Goforth. I'm the social media specialist here at BCSN. Join with me, as always, my co-anchor, program director, and anchor here at BCSN, Justin Feldkamp.
Brendan, it is week 6. We are at week 6 of the regular season, just ready to go here alongside Mark Gibson.
Yes, we've got BCSN's high school football analyst, Mark Gibson, on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Oh, ready to get rolling.
Wonderful to be here. And as you said, week 6, it's already half over. It's hard to believe. And hopefully the weather starts to change into football season pretty soon.
Yeah, and it is a very busy week, Brendan, for the man to your left.
Okay.
Because not only is he here for the podcast, that's check 1. Not only is he subbing in for Pat Cacciardo on BCSN's Game Day Tailgate.
That's right.
Check 2. Then we're going to get him a golf cart to go from the field level all the way up to the press box at Rossford. He's going to be the color analyst for the game of the week, Otsego and Rossford. We'll get to that later. So 3 boxes checked for Mr. Gibson over there.
And
hats off to him.
I am doing my Kirk Herbstreit impersonation right now.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to have a busy week, but I'm looking forward to it. It's the best time of the year. Playoffs are around the corner, big matchups that we have this week, so we need to get after it.
And we're happy to have you here. Happy to have you on all of our BCSN stuff.
Thank you.
All right. So coming up on today's show, we're going to be covering the player of the week, Southview at Perrysburg. Another big matchup coming up this week. Start at Rogers, the City League underway. Our clip of the week, student section review, the game of the week, Otsego at Rossford, as you mentioned, and even more. All right. You can check me out on Twitter at Brendan Goforth, Justin at Justin Feldkamp, and you can catch up Mark Gibson, like we said, this weekend. Check us out on BCSN social media at BCSN Sports. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We've got content going out there every day on all of those platforms. You don't want to miss it. We got quite a bit of stuff for you to check out. And speaking of not missing anything, don't miss next week's episode. We're going to be back Wednesday, September 28th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on your favorite podcast platform. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and on bcsnnation.com/podcast. We're going to have BCSN's Game Day Tailgate football analyst, Pat Cacciardo, back next week on the show. I do want to, real quick, before we get too far into the episode, just give a special thank you and shout out to everyone out there who has been tuning in and listening to the podcast. Last week's episode is the most popular podcast episode that we've had so far. We've seen some incredible viewership and growth from you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to share it around with your friends and family. Who knows? Maybe some more people might enjoy it as well. All right. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. This week, I want to start off by talking about the Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Player of the Week. This one was another crazy week for voting. So far, this is our most voted on poll of the season. We had 2 Titans going after each other. We had Whitmer's Corvell Morgan and Anthony Wade's Jack Benfelt. And it came down to the wire until about an hour remaining, and then things changed pretty significantly. Whitmer's wide receiver Corvell Morgan came out with the win. He had an excellent game last week in their game against Findlay. He had 107 yards, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns, and jumped to number 2 in the Sports Center top 10. So how are we thinking about Corvell Morgan's performance last week?
He's been a great addition to Whitmer. He's a transfer from Start High School, and he has been a playmaker for that offense for Whitmer. A much needed outside presence, and it's hard to bring him down. He's not humongous, but he's just very elusive, and you can't arm tackle him. He's gone on a lot of yak yard situations, yards after catch.
Yes.
And he's not just done it to a single team. He's done it to virtually every single team on their schedule thus far.
When you are a receiver and can run like a running back, which means you're elusive, you have some speed, and you don't go down easily, that's just another advantage to your style, right? So some guys can run fast, some guys run good routes. You got to be able to catch the ball, but what do you do with it after you catch? And that's the biggest thing that he has going for him right now. And it adds an addition to that big school, and they're going to have some big games coming up. So I'm sure we're going to hear his name many more times. If I was a coach, I want to get the ball in his hands as many times as possible.
Oh, definitely. It seems like every week I'm putting out a clip on Twitter saying you just can't bring this guy down because, like I said, those yards after catch are just fantastic for Corvell Morgan. So congratulations to him on winning the Charlie's Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Player of the Week. And thank you guys for voting. We'll have a new poll this Friday night with a new Player of the Week. Definitely stay tuned for that. All right, let's jump into, I've got a couple opening topics that I want to talk about, some games to take a look at. The first one on the list is Southview at Perrysburg. So Southview is coming off their first loss of the season last week after they fell to Anthony Wayne in Anthony Wayne's first shutout of the season, 15-0 over Southview, bringing Southview to 4-1 on the season. Perrysburg, on the other hand, got another big win over Napoleon, 42-7, and continued their win streak to 4, bringing their record to 4-1 on the year as well. TJ Tackett's had a fantastic game, six touchdowns, 4 passing, 2 rushing, over 300 total yards. What are we thinking about this matchup between Southview and Perrysburg?
It's another test. It's the second straight week in which Southview is going to be tested. We said it on last week's episode of the podcast, in which Southview was taking on a very good Anthony Wayne team. It's kind of, all right, Southview, you've beaten up on the lesser opponents. Now let's see what you got against a big boy. And I think both teams, Anthony Wayne and Southview, both showed us something in the sense of Anthony Wayne was going to be the favorite. Southview, a kind of up and coming, still a younger team, but with some experience from guys who were sophomores starting on varsity, making a name for themselves. And they battled. They hung tough. They didn't just tuck their tails and go after being down 9-0 at a halftime. They had an unfortunate interception in the first half that eventually led to an Anthony Wayne touchdown, but 15-0 against an offense for Anthony Wayne that has proven that they can score points in bunches, not necessarily the type of elite offense that they've had in the past in recent years, but for Southview to show up and to keep it close and to continue to battle for 4 straight quarters, I think is valuable for the Cougars more moving forward. But Anthony Wayne, I said it on air, been there, done that. They know how to win these big games.
Exactly. And I got to do this game last week with Brad, and this is the second time that I've seen Southview this year. Opening the season against Rogers, I got to see that explosive offense. They were playing their 2s and 3s, and they were still very, very good at what they were doing. They were going on all cylinders, 100 miles an hour, very impressed with how the younger guys were taking in that Friday night experience, especially week 1, and playing as well as they did. And Justin, as you alluded to, we were going to see if that offense could continue to do what they were used to doing. And that's the thing. When you're used to doing it, the kids have confidence in themselves. They ran into a buzzsaw, and that buzzsaw is Anthony Wayne's defense. And they're giving up less than 1 touchdown per game this year. And it might be one of the best defenses that Coach Brungard's had. And that's saying something because they can play some outstanding defense. They're very well coached. And I think they're going to carry that until this offense figures it out. For Anthony Wayne, they have a great running game, obviously. They're going to figure it out. But once they do, they're going to be extremely dangerous because that defense is stifling. Sexton, running back at Southview, outstanding running back, okay? Big offensive line. They could not get their footing. They couldn't figure out what to do. They couldn't block those guys in blue. And it wasn't like they were being dynamic and they were blitzing the house and all this thing. That front 4 puts on tremendous pressure. They shoot gaps. They get in there very, very quickly. Southview was struggling to find that identity of what they could hang their hat on. They tried to go to the air. We had a couple of interceptions that were big for Anthony Wayne. Talked to Coach Brungard after the game. He's concerned about the offense of not scoring the points that they're used to, but obviously he couldn't say enough about their defense. And watching them twice now this year, I'm telling you, that is a scary, scary defense over there. They're going to make a lot of noise and win a lot of ball games just because of how they are playing right now.
Yeah, Anthony Wayne's defense has 26 shutouts under the Andy Brungard era, and that's 6+ seasons. I mean, that's multiple shutouts against quality opponents. I mean, Southview, yes, beating up on lesser opponents, but still doing it convincingly, putting up 40, 50, 60, 70 points per game,
right.
And they shut them out. But Anthony Wayne's defense, it's really 11 guys doing their singular job. And in this day and age, with highlights and show me moments kind of thing, they just fill the gaps. They just cover guys. They just have a knack for going for the ball. England Allen coming up with some crucial interceptions for that defense in big-time games through the first half of the season. They just do their job. Like, it's a simple statement, do your job, but it's hard to get 16 to 18-year-olds to buy into that each and every rep, each and every play, each and every series. and they just continue to do that game in and game out. We've kind of hearkened to Anthony Wayne, but the matchup that we're looking forward to is Southview versus Perrysburg. Perrysburg 4 wins in a row, scoring 40-plus points per game in their 4-game winning streak, and they're beating some solid teams. They've beaten Findlay, beaten St. John's, beaten Bowling Green, and then beaten Napoleon. So they got Southview, Anthony Wayne. That's going to be a major topic for this podcast next week. That's going to be the NLL de facto championship, basically. But we'll kick that one down to next week's episode. This Southview Perrysburg matchup, a lot of points, I think. This may be a game in which it's similar to the St. John's game with Perrysburg from 3 weeks ago. It was a 48-41 in overtime. I don't know if we get that high. I don't know if Southview's offense can score that much against Perrysburg. And I think Perrysburg, Mark, probably learned a lot from that game against St. John's as far as the defensive side of the ball. And they've obviously cleaned it up since then. Yes, against BG and Napoleon, but still giving up 13 points to BG and 7 against Napoleon.
Yeah, Coach Ward and that defensive staff over there, I know what they're capable of doing and what they've done in the past. And doing that game as well, when I had the St. John Perrysburg game, I think they might have pulled up a little bit at halftime. Okay. The reason I say that is because I think they felt that they had everything in control at that point, and it was just, hey, we should be scoring more points, and we're going to get out of this thing, and it's going to be quick. And all of a sudden, St. John's came back like you cannot believe. Probably comes down to the wire of maybe being one of our games of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the way it worked out. It was exciting, and it was unbelievable the way it worked out for both teams, really, because St. John's kind of felt we've got an identity now and getting everything going offensively, which they were struggling earlier in the year. Perrysburg, if you look at their record, 4-1, the only team that they lost to is one of the better teams in the Columbus area, and they only lost by 3. So they're much, much better than I think people think they are. Even at 4-1, we got to give them a lot of credit right now, and I think that's going to be a fantastic ball game. Anthony Wayne Perrysburg usually is the winner. It comes down to being the NLL champ. No different this year. They obviously have Southview in the way. They got to take care of business first, but I think everybody is looking forward to next week's ball game in that matchup.
Definitely going to be one to take a look at. Like we said, Southview at Perrysburg this Friday. You can catch that coverage on Game Day Nation and then on the BCSN Now app. The next game I want to take a look at, jumping over to the City League. We've got a City League matchup. We've got the Start Spartans at the Rogers Rams. Start's coming off a big loss to Bellevue last week, 46-0. They fall to 0-5 on the year. And then Rogers also coming off a big loss to Port Clinton, 47-16. Also falling to 0-5 on the year. So the winner of this matchup not only is going to get a win in the City League, but they're also going to get their first win of the year. And this starts moving forward for the rest of the season, the City League matchups. So what are we looking at for this matchup between Start and Rogers?
Somebody's got to win. Somebody's going to get their first win. It has been a rough season for a number of City League teams, 5 out of the 6. Scott is off to a solid start.
Yes.
Scott is 3-2, and they've shown signs of life on offense and some dynamic playmakers on the outside, including their quarterback as well. But let's start on that side. They're 0-5, and I mean, it's pretty glaring. They have scored 6 points all season.
All season.
I mean, that is tough to swallow. I don't care the level of opponent that you're playing. They have played some really good teams.
Yes.
Whitmer, Fremont Ross, St. Francis, Clyde, and Bellevue. Clearly Start would not be favored in any of those matches, and they lost all of those games. But they've got to figure something out on offense, and the schedule is a lot easier as you get into the City League for them, going up against a really tough non-conference schedule, Mark. But this is not the type of Start team that we have seen in recent years under Coach Godfrey Lewis or prior to his era there.
Division II team, you expect a little more, maybe having some more athletes come out and so forth. I don't know what the situation is, obviously, but you're right. Start for the last several years has been competitive, at least. And so when you look at them not scoring points, it's a lack of an identity where are we a running team or are we a passing team? Do we combo that? What is our best way going forward? And they have to decide that. But, Justin, you're right. You look at that non-conference schedule. Those are really, really good football teams that they've played.
Yes.
So now that they get maybe some competition that they're not only familiar with because they play them every year, but now competition between the athletes might be similar. So I think it's going to be an interesting showdown for the rest of the season for these two teams. Now, I saw Rogers in week 1. I was impressed on how they performed against Southview. It was 70-7. You say, how can you be impressed? Because even when they were down the second half, those kids were fighting. They were playing. They were playing hard for their coach. And the thing is, you're instilling a new philosophy over there, and I think those kids are buying into it, but they're a young football team. Very, very few starters coming back from the previous season. They had a first-time ever quarterback playing for them. So, again, they're trying to find an identity as well. So these two teams going at one another, they're going to find out what they're made of for the rest of the season. That's an interesting matchup just because you're looking for confidence going in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and, don't get us wrong here. We're not trying to talk down about the City League. The records are the records, facts are the facts. But don't discredit what those kids and those coaches are trying to accomplish, because in many respects, the City League, to win the City League is a huge deal once you get into weeks 9 and 10 where those championship games could take place and who finishes first and who finishes second. And both of these teams at this point in the year have a chance, I think, along with Scott. Scott has kind of surged up, and I think just based on recent history, Start has traditionally been the preseason favorite with the coaches and media and just in general because of what they've done on the field in the most recent years. But it seems as if Scott, even with a smaller roster, has performed better than Start thus far. But it will be an uplifting moment come Friday night at 9:30 when one of these teams, I should say 8:30, because we got 6 o'clock kickoffs within the City League, and this game can be seen on the BCSN Now app. So 2.5 hours on the field. One team is going to go home victorious, and that's going to be a big burden off of them as they finish the rest of the regular season.
Yep, kind of projecting them and pushing them forward for hopefully the rest of the season. All right, well, like you said, you can catch that Friday night. Starts at Rogers. Let's go ahead and jump into our next segment. It's the clip of the week.
It's time to react to the BCSN Nation podcast clip of the week. Send us your favorite play on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok using the @BCSN Sports and hashtag BCSN Podcast.
At BCSN Sports, hashtag BCSN Podcast. It's the clip of the week. If you would like to submit a clip for us to react to, then definitely send it to us on Twitter using the @BCSN Sports and hashtag BCSN Podcast. If it's one of the clips we already send out, comment on it or quote it using the @BCSN Sports and hashtag BCSN Podcast. But you probably already know what clip we're taking a look at this week, but we have to. It got to number 2 on the Sports Center Top 10. This was fantastic. The wide receiver for the Windward Panthers, Corvale Morgan, also the player of the week, went up for a one-handed grab in the end zone for a touchdown from his QB, Brady Ford. Let's take a look at this clip and give our thoughts.
Brady Ford looking to his right. Corvale Morgan. Oh my! Touchdown!
Man, I mean, just made it look easy.
Yeah, he's got a guy all over him. I mean, right in front of him. That's a great pass by Ford, by the way. And then for Morgan to come down one-handed. I mean, sometimes, Mark, just the circumstances present themselves. It looked like the defender had the left side, his left arm kind of boggled up there, and that was his only option to go up with one hand, and he came down with the football for an awesome touchdown.
You're right. Look at the projection of the pass. It's a rainbow. So he gets height on it. He puts it in the back corner where only his receiver can get to it. However, I don't know if he was expecting the one-handed grab either. So
yeah,
I'm sure he went over there and said, hey, that's exactly where I wanted to put it. And nice job. That's just the way we practice. But those are things that you can practice on in the 7-on-7s over the summer. You can work on your timing. You can work on certain routes and get real good at it. Unlike the style of football where if you're going to run it all the time, obviously you can't do a whole lot of that over the summer to get prepared. But you can do those type of things. And that looked like there's a lot of time spent on the timing. Those two guys have probably done that quite a few times in practice, and they make it look real easy right there. But what an impressive catch.
Yeah, plenty of time for Ford with his offensive line. Look at that. Nowhere even close to him. I know this was a quick release route, but still, at the same time, good job on that offensive line. Whitmer traditionally has a big offensive line to protect that quarterback. This is just well executed, simple routes, two guys, twins on the right, and then a little crossing route to take off one of the defenders to create a one-on-one, and Morgan just does a tremendous job, and he's, simple, I shouldn't say simple catches, but I'm saying He makes those catches look routine.
Yes.
And then he also, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, has those breakaway moments where he catches it on a 10-yard route and turns it into a 50-yard touchdown.
You also see him taking off at the beginning of that play. There's a little stutter step, trying to set up the defensive back. So maybe he makes him look like he's going to go inside or up the middle, and then there's an option route where he knew where he was going the whole time. He was just trying to get outside leverage on the defender. And again, the defender, though, doesn't bite. He's right in his face, which makes it all the more impressive.
Yeah, we mentioned he was a transfer from Start. For Start, he was the quarterback. And I'm not sure if that was out of necessity, but Mark, he just looks so natural as a wide receiver.
Yes, he does. And he's got some size to him, obviously, as we mentioned. But when you can run, you've got hands and concentration like that, he's going to open up some eyes, and maybe we'll see him playing on a Saturday.
All right. And, also, too, just to mention in terms of the placement of the ball, that's actually something that Corval Morgan actually mentioned on the piece that we did on Sports Nightly last night. He mentioned specifically that Ford just put the ball exactly where it had to go, and he was really appreciative of that. All right. Well, that is our clip of the week. If you want to check that out, for the people who are listening on the podcast platforms, if you want to check out the clip, you can go to our Twitter, but you can also go to bcsnnation.com/podcast and check out the new post for this episode, and we'll have that clip in there. Speaking of highlights, check out our TikTok. It's at BCSN Sports. Every Friday night, we're putting out several TikToks of various highlight plays that are happening. You don't want to miss it because we've got some really great ones over there. All right, let's jump into our next segment. It's the student section review.
It's time for the BCSN Nation Podcast Student Section Review. Send us your photos or videos of your school's student section using the @BCSN Sports and hashtag SSOTW on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok.
At BCSN Sports, hashtag SSOTW. It's the Unison Health student section of the week and our student section review. This week, we had another first-time winner for this season. We had the Clay Eagle Maniacs, who, by the way, were on the road at Lima Senior last week, and they still came away with the student section of the week. They had a Neon Knights. We'll go ahead and take a look at this, and I've got something to say about you, Clay Eagles. Let's take a look here. Absolutely bring in the spirits.
Solid contingent down there. That's not a short trip down I-75 for Clay, so good on them. Well represented and got the neon out, got the glow sticks, got the sunglasses on top. We got some Vipers right there. I'm a big fan of Vipers. Well done. And when you go on the road and you root your team on and you root your team on to a victory, you get the student section of the week.
Yes, you do. Yes. So Clay, they participate every single week. They may not be putting out the most volume of posts, but they're always participating and always engaging. So I want to say a huge thank you to Clay. You guys do a great job every single week. You guys use the yearbook account and then also the cheerleading account. You guys do a fantastic job. Had to go ahead and go with you guys this week. One quick thing to mention though, moving forward, it's a volume game. So if you guys post even more stuff, you give yourself even a higher chance at getting another student section of the week this season. But great job, Clay, and we'll see you Friday with the belt.
Yeah, they're going to take on St. Francis from Clay Memorial Stadium. I'll actually be there to get some highlights after the tailgate show, so I'm looking forward to that. I've been there a bunch of times for some live shots with 13ABC, BCSN. They always have a large crew at their home games, and they arrive early. That's what I like to see. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Clay Eagles and how student sections bring the atmosphere to big-time games?
Two things. BCSN, by doing this, is bringing out more of this. We see this every week, everywhere we go. And they have a reason now. They're competing for something as well.
Yes.
And number two, the football team has given them a lot to cheer for this year. They're exciting.
Yes,
they're putting points on the board. And I'm telling you what that does for the student body. And if a football team is doing well, having a good season, everything just seems to click in the school. I've been told that by administrators, teachers. Everybody's just in better spirits. That you have something to look forward to on Friday. The staff is behind it. And so you just get to see a little bit of the joy and the appreciation that the fans, being the students, have for that football team and what they're doing right now. So it all works hand in hand.
Yeah, Clay is an interesting program school team right now, in my opinion, because they're 4-1. The front half of their schedule is considerably easier than the back half of their schedule. This is the final season of the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. They got the meat and potatoes of their schedule here on the second half, but they went on the road and beat Lima Senior. I think they got a decent shot, or maybe even a more than 50% shot to beat St. Francis at home. They could go to 5-1. If you're looking at the playoff ratings right now in Division II for them, they are the 8 seed.
Okay.
That's definitely going to change by the time the season comes to a close, but still worth recognizing at this point in the season. They'd be the 8 seed, meaning they would have a home game in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, man. Clay has been doing very well so far, and we'll see how they continue going on. But once again, a final congratulations to the Clay Eagle Maniacs. You guys got the Unison Health Student Section of the Week. Like I said, we'll be there. We'll be there with the belts, so show up and go crazy. We're ready for it. All right, let's jump into this week's question of the week.
It's time for the BCSN Nation Podcast Question of the Week. Send us your question on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook using the @BCSN Sports and #BCSN Podcast.
At BCSN Sports, #BCSN Podcast. It's the question of the week. If you have a question that you would like to ask us to discuss here on the show, have a whole segment out of it, then let us know. Tweet at us at BCSN Sports, #BCSN Podcast. But today, I've got a question for Justin and Mark. I want to know, if the playoffs were to start right now, we're jumping straight into the playoffs today, which team would have a better opportunity, more likely to move farther in the playoffs? Is it the Perrysburg Yellow Jackets, or is it the Anthony Wayne Generals? What are we thinking?
I think both of them have a legit shot to make solid runs. The caveat to this question is Perrysburg's a Division I team, Anthony Wayne is a Division II team, so they're not necessarily going up against they aren't going against the same opponents. But Anthony Wayne in recent years has gone on farther playoff runs. But if you want to go a little bit farther back, maybe 10-ish years ago, we saw Perrysburg go on deep tournament runs, state semifinal type of runs in consecutive seasons, Mark.
I'm going to go with defense. I mentioned Anthony Wayne's defense, and as long as you can play really good defense like that, you've got a chance. And your offense will come around, but you don't need to score a ton of points when your defense is playing as well as they are. However, at the same time, you also have to score to win.
Yes.
Right? And they're having some difficulties right now. I think they'll figure it out. I know that coaching staff is working feverishly to try to figure out something to get us some points where we're not in nail biters every week, or we're not having to rely on the defense so much to get shutouts or just to give up a touchdown. But I think Perrysburg has found they're not just the one-headed monster with Connor Waldenczak. Tackets has been exploding and going crazy over the last few weeks. Plus, they have some dynamic receivers, so they do have a passing game. Might not be as dynamic as it's been in the past, but they have it. So Division I, that's pretty hard because you're going to go against some outstanding football programs. But again, don't overlook what Perrysburg has done thus far. And I think this might be one of those years where they just get the right matchup and they can go maybe 1, 2, 3 deep in the playoffs, and it's not a one and done. You're right, Justin, with Anthony Wayne. Playing a Division II programs or Division II programs in the playoffs, you can't count out that defense. But again, you got to score points in order to win, and that's going to be what they need to figure out real soon. Yeah,
they are the 3 seed right now. If you're talking about Anthony Wayne, they are one of 3 undefeated teams at the top of the ratings: 5-0 Medina, 5-0 Fremont Ross, 5-0 Anthony Wayne. 16 teams. Remember, last year was the first year in which 16 teams in each region made the postseason. So you'll have that home game as a top 8 seed, and then another one as a top 4 seed as long as you win. So Anthony Wayne would have home field advantage. As of right now, Perrysburg would be an 8 seed. They would have a home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. But there's, aside from that 1 versus 16 matchup and 2 versus 15, where those top seeds should not have much trouble, you're going to face good teams in the playoffs no matter what. It's from the second round on. Anybody can beat anybody. But there's one element of this answer to your question, Brendan, that I would bring up is Perrysburg is going to basically take on teams from Columbus and then the Dayton area. That's the way that their region works out. And the 2 seed right now in their region is Dublin-Jerome. They've already played Dublin-Jerome in week 1 on the road in Columbus and lost by 3 points in the first week of the season. Dublin-Jerome can get better just like Perrysburg can, but you already have that proof that we can contend, we can win that type of game. So Perrysburg is putting a resume together to make you believe that they have a shot to beat everybody or anybody within that region.
Yeah, I really do believe that. I think, number one, you're looking at two area teams that communities love football. They get behind those teams so well that everybody in the town seems to show up. That St. John's Perrysburg game, it was so packed. It was unbelievable. There was, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 people there at least.
Yeah, the Perrysburg AD told me it was between 5,000 and 6,000.
Okay, so it was unbelievable. They were standing 2 and 3 deep around the fence on the outside of the bleachers. So the communities get behind. And so what I'm saying, that if they do have that home game, it's going to be a fantastic experience. Those communities are going to show up, that drive, that energy. You talk about the fans, you talk about the student sections. Everyone's going to be so excited for that, because when the playoffs start, you root for your league opponents, right? And you just want to see them do well. Obviously, when they're in different divisions, you don't care what they do. It's like, you don't want them to lose. You want them to win and go on and represent your conference or your league as well as possible. So we just look forward to that matchup in 2 weeks, and we look forward to seeing what they do this year, and hopefully they move on and give us a lot more playoff games to do. To cover.
We'd love to have a full slate of games for Game Day Nation. Week 11, Week 12, Week 13, Week 14. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll see how they continue to play here moving forward. Like I said, we got that matchup coming up here pretty soon as well. All right. Well, let's jump into the last segment. We're breaking down the game of the week.
It's time to break down the BCSN Nation podcast game of the week. Send us your predictions for who comes away with the victory on Twitter and Instagram using the @BCSN Sports and #BCSN Podcast.
At BCSN Sports, #BCSN Podcast. It's the game of the week. Coming up this Friday, we've got the Otsego Knights at Rossford Bulldogs. This is going to be a good one. We've got Otsego coming off of a loss to Elmwood 21-7 last week, and Rossford coming off a big win over Fostoria 47-7. Otsego moves to 3-2 on the year. Rossford moves to 2-3 on the year. Rossford's QB Alex Williams had 6 TDs last week, 5 through the air, 1 on the ground. What are we looking at for this game of the week matchup?
For Rossford, they want to see plenty of points. But the thing for them in the games and they've lost, they've scored a bunch of points, Mark, but they've also given up a ton of points. Week 2, they lost 58-51 to Port Clinton. Week 3, they lost 55-34 to Oak Harbor. So Rossford has got to not only, one, score points like they have been all season long, even against good opponents, and then their defense has got to tighten up a little bit, especially in the secondary. Their defensive backs have been tested, and quite honestly, they've failed numerous times. Coach Strusbeck, I was talking to him at Jackson Ferguson Stadium earlier this week, and he said, Justin, we've played really, really well at times this year, and we've played really, really bad at times this year. And they got to limit the amount of times that they play bad against an Otsego team. Their defense has been really, really good through the first half of the season. Elmwood, the game that they played last week, Elmwood scored on average 50 points going into that game, and Otsego held them to 21. So the defense has proven that they can stop really good offenses, which Rossford has, and it'll be a matter for Otsego of being able to hang. If Rossford starts to score some touchdowns, can Otsego match the offensive production for the Bulldogs? That's
right. And Otsego being a playoff team last year, Rossford is usually right around that contender, 4-6, 5-5, 6-4, depending on the talent that Coach Drusbach had. I've known Coach Drusbach for a long time, because when I was at Clyde, he was the head coach at Fremont St. Joe.
Yep.
He's run a similar offense for a long period of time. He'll spread you out, go 5 wide, throw the ball all over the field. And usually he has a quarterback that obviously can put up some numbers and stats, and they're looking to score points. But when I was a coach over at Clyde, we ran the ball predominantly. And I always told our kids, we don't want to get in a pinball matchup with teams, right? We don't want to try to have to outscore teams. That's what they're doing this year, right? They're just doing the opposite. We need to score one more than they do. Because unlike the Anthony Wayne defense or the defense that we've been talking about, they're struggling with that. So at that point, you just have to flip the philosophy that if our defense can get a turnover and give us one more possession, and our offense can do something and score points with that extra possession that we get, that might be the difference of the ball game. And so if they can keep it close, look for Rossford being at home to get behind their system, their belief, and go on and do something with that. But again, you look at Otsego, the teams that they lost to are pretty darn good, right? 3-2, but they've lost to 2 5-0 teams and teams that are state ranked right now.
I was going to say, yeah, state ranked.
State ranked. So they're not just 5-0 for being 5-0. They're 5-0 because they're good football teams. And so you look at what they've done. They played close games though. And so I think the nod goes to Otsego, but Rossford, Coach Drewsbach, if he can find a way to put some points on the board, it should be a good one.
Yeah, game of the week last year when we were at Rossford for tailgate and the game of the week, they played Genoa 14-9. Game came down to the final defensive stand there. So maybe we're in for another version of that. But Rossford told me that they need to correct what they're doing in the first quarter. Their first quarters have just been awful. They've been giving up way too many points. If you break down their scoring per quarter, Rossford's second quarter is phenomenal. They're nearly 100 points within that second quarter. So they just got to figure out, it's like, all right, well, how do you make the second quarter and duplicate that to the first and third and fourth quarter? And they're like, I know, that's what we're trying to figure out. That's what Coach was kind of saying in the message. I don't know if we need to, he was joking around saying, I don't know if we need to upset you guys before the game and get you rattled to make you come out more fierce on defense, take away your pregame meal or something. But they got to correct some things defensively, and they're fully aware of it. It's not like they're just sitting on their hands. They're efforting that and trying to figure that out. And this is why this game is our game of the week, because it is going to be a test for both teams. A great offense against a great defense, and then how does it play out within the lines?
Well, right now it's a chess match. So you're looking at what is the defensive philosophy going to be against that 4-5 wide open spread offense that Rossford runs, and at the same time, what can Rossford do to match points if it gets into those type of games? And sometimes it comes down to the trick play or something that we weren't expecting, a hook and lateral or reverse or something to that effect, because they just know that they have to continue to score points. And so sometimes coaches have been holding on to those plays for certain matchups. Don't be surprised if we don't see them this Friday.
Yeah, all the highlights. Sometimes we get 2-yard rushing touchdown highlights in our highlight shows just because that's how the touchdowns are scored. Yep. It's not the case with Rossford. No. Rossford, it's 47-yard bombs down the center of the field, or a great out route or a great flag route to the corner of the end zone. They got a lot of dynamic playmakers. Brendan Revels, Jake Morrison, two of the outside wide receivers for Rossford who I've called in highlights this year. So hopefully we'll see some fireworks for Rossford. Literally, when they scored touchdowns, they set off fireworks at Rossford. Yes. So we'll see what we have, and then if Otsego can prevent some of those fireworks.
All right. Well, we'll find out. We'll have that game this weekend. You can catch that on Game Day Nation. Also, the host of Game Day Tailgate at 6:30. What else do we have on Friday?
Yeah, we got a ton of games to get to. I will be honest. I don't have the list in front of me right now, but we have a lot of games. With the 3 that we mentioned here during this podcast, we will be having those games on the BCSN Now app. I know we also have Whiteford's matchup. And look at this. Pull up the trusty email. There we go. Boom. Well done, Brendan. Saving me here. All right, we got Whitmer St. John's as well. In addition to the game of the week, Otsego Rossford, we got Whitmer St. John's, Southview Perrysburg. Finley is at Fremont Ross. Looking forward to that matchup. We got some banged up quarterbacks coming out of week 5, going into week 6 there. Got to get some quarterback injury updates with those teams. Start at Rogers. We mentioned that on the podcast. Adrian Madison is at Ottawa Hills. So we got a Michigan team coming into the 419. And we also have Summerfield at Whiteford up in Michigan. In our Erie Sandusky market, we got Clyde at Perkins. Perkins is now ranked 9th in the state in Division 4. They knocked off previously unbeaten Huron last week. They were down, came back, scored a touchdown, were down by 1, went for 2, and the win in the final minute. And they got the 2-point conversion to beat Huron. So Clyde is at Perkins. That should be a great game. And then Port Clinton at Edison. All the games on the BCSN Now app.
All right, we've got all that for you. Don't miss out. That's all on Friday nights. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. It'll really help us out. Check out next week's episode 7, Wednesday, September 28th at 3 p.m. We got Game Day Tailgate's back on the show. Check me out on Twitter at Brendan Goforth, Justin at Justin Feldkamp, and check out Mark Gibson. He's going to be everywhere this weekend on BCSN. Thanks, guys. We'll check you out next week.